Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we left off last time by starting to talk about doing genetic crosses and calculating probabilities, and today we're going to continue that. The next thing we're going to talk about is the mechanisms of meiosis that actually generate the gametes, so I actually think that we won't start that today, and we'll just stick with going through genetics bit by bit and working out problems, and you're definitely going to need your iClicker today, so whenever you're ready, take that out. Okay, so we left off last time by starting to explain how to solve genetic problems, and we went through a couple of very simplified examples to begin with, and the idea is that you can take a problem and break it down into very simple parameters and then just use multiplication and addition to predict the outcome of the crosses. And we're going to start, obviously, with very simple crosses, very simple genetic rules. And what we'll do in this lecture and the one following is to build ever so more complicated and more realistic examples of what really goes on in heredity. And then, so the idea is that, for example, like in a dihybrid or any multi-character cross, we can just break it down into independent monohybrid crosses. And so the idea is I've written here all the different possible combinations in a monohybrid cross. Okay? And if you just know these, right, and the ratio of the output of the results in terms of genotype and phenotype, okay, those numbers are really all you need to solve any problem. Okay, so it's just going to be knowing which ratio to use, right, from looking at the individual alleles, the individual genes, and then doing multiplication and addition. And we're just going to basically go through quite a number of examples, and then we're going to start going through all ever more complicated examples where things don't fit a completely like first approximation simple Mendelian patterns, but in fact they're still explained very easily by Mendelian genetics. Okay. Okay, so we started off with this example from the textbook. So if we have this cross, big Y, little y, big Y, big R, little r, cross to itself, basically, or the same genotype, right? Then we can ask, well, what's the probability of having being homozygous for big Y and homozygous for big R, okay? And so again, you just break that down. So it's the heterozygote cross, and then you ask, well, how often do you get the homozygous big Y? And so that's equivalent to this, right? And so and all you do is you substitute Y for A here, and you see that 1/4 of the time you get big A, right? Equivalent to big Y, and so that's 1/4, right, in terms of genotype. And then the probability of having big R is exactly the same. It's the same heterozygous and how often you get the homozygous. Okay, and so that's 1/4 as well, and you multiply those together, and that's 1/16. All right, so pretty simple. Then we can say what's the probability? Here's something else: being heterozygous at Y and homozygous for big R. So now you look again at this table, and you see that the probability of being heterozygous is 1/2. Okay, and so punch in 1/2 here, and then this is still 1/4. It's exactly like it was here, and so now the answer is 1/8. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward to you. Okay, so then we can get slightly more complicated. So we can say if we do this cross now, okay, what's the probability of being homozygous for at least 2 recessive traits? Okay, so the first thing in a problem like this that you want to do is figure out what you're looking for, what outcome you're looking for. So it says homozygous for at least 2 recessive traits. Okay, so then there's a couple of genotypes that can occur that fit that. All right, so and these are them. So here you're homozygous for both little p and little y, and then here it's little p, little r, and here it's little y, little r. Okay, then you can also be, because of the fact that you're heterozygous for big P, little p here. In addition to this possibility, there's this one where you're homozygous for big P, and then homozygous for little y and little r. All right, does that follow? And then we can then also have this, because it said the question said being homozygous for at least 2 recessive alleles. This is homozygous for 3, which fits that. So then these are all the genotypes that you want to calculate the probability of. Okay, so I'll give you like a minute or two, and you can see how many you can calculate those probabilities. Okay, and again, remember that really all you need is this information that's written there. No, you can't get that. Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, I'll give you about 30 more seconds. Okay, and this is going to be a clicker question, so we're just going to put up the answer in a second, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on, all right? So then these are the probabilities, okay? So, and again, all they are is breaking this down into the individual monohybrid crosses, right? And looking at the probability of each of those genotypes. And so this is what you get. Mike asked a question real quick. He said, well, do we have to consider, say, little p, big Y, little r? Okay, do we need to consider that? Okay, why not? Right, so the probability of that is 0, right? So we don't need to think about that because there's no way to get big Y out of this, okay? But that shows the importance of, then remembering that the crosses aren't necessarily just, heterozygous to heterozygous. That we can write out crosses that can be sort of any combination, and that's what we've done here as a particular one. So these are the probabilities that you get, okay? So what you do then, of course, is then just multiply those out, and you get this. So now, to answer the question, what do I have to do with these numbers? Okay, add them up, right? Because this is the probability of each outcome. And so now I add those up, okay? And I get 6/16 or 3/8, okay? All right, so that's how you would do that problem. And this is one that's in the textbook that shows that answer. Okay. There's actually another way to do it if you want. That since you're just thinking about the phenotype, right, and we're not necessarily asking you to calculate all the genotypes, you could have also done it this way. You could have asked, what's the chances of having these different phenotypes? And the idea here, when you write out phenotypes, if you're looking at the homozygous recessive, you can write it as little p. But this notation R dash means that it could be RR or R big R little r. Okay, so it could be big R big R big R little r because phenotypically that would be the same. All right. And so what you see is I've also written up here on these things what the phenotypic ratio is. And so that's sort of a little bit of a shortcut. So for example, in this cross, the genotypes are 1/4, 1/2, 1/4 like this, but the phenotypes are 3/4 A dash, big A dash, and 1/4 little a, little a. Okay. So if you do that, you can shorten the problem a little bit, and you can just calculate those and come up with the same answer. Okay. So you could run through that if you want. I mean, it's probably, either way works fine. If you get a really huge cross, it can be a little bit faster to calculate the phenotype straight instead of all the different genotypes. In this case, it only saves you one particular combination. Okay. All right, so let's try another one now. Okay, so let's say we have a true breeding pea plant with yellow and wrinkled peas, and we cross it with a true breeding pea plant with green and round peas. Okay, and so again, the importance there is that they're true breeding, meaning that when they're mated to each other, they consistently give that phenotype again, and no other variation on that. So we find that in the F1, all the peas are yellow and smooth. Okay, so the first question you can ask is what for each of those traits, what's dominant and what's recessive? So what's dominant between yellow and green? Yellow, right? And dominant between wrinkled and round and smooth? It's smooth. Okay, and so you can say that then the genotype of the F1 plants is big Y, little y, big R, little r. Okay, but then those are yellow and round. All right. Okay, so then we can say, all right, if you cross the F1 to itself, right, in the F2 generation, what fraction of the plants will have green, round peas? Okay, so again, then you would think, well, what genotype am I looking for? Okay, so that would mean I'm looking for YYR dash, okay, which means that it could be R, big R, little r, or big R, big R. All right, and so again, I just look at this, I just can go to this table. So being this particular phenotype, little y, okay, is 1/4, and then being R dash, right, is 3/4. Okay, and that gives me 3/16. Okay, that follow? All right, so now I'll give you a problem to solve here. All right, okay, so now let's say I cross the F1 to itself again, right? But I only get 7 F2 plants out. Okay, what's the probability that all 7 will be plants with yellow round peas? Okay, so go ahead and solve that. Okay, do people have some sort of answer? Okay, all right, so let's think about how to solve it. So the first thing is, well, what genotype or phenotype are we looking for? So we're looking for yellow and round, and that means that the genotype we're looking for is big Y dash, big R dash, right? So it could be big Y, or big Y, little y. It could be the same, they would still be yellow. And the same thing for round, okay? And so again, then the probability of these is 3/4 times 3/4, so that's 9/16 to get one plant that is that way, okay? Now to get 7 plants that are all that way is just 9/16 to the 7th, right? So it's about 0.018%, okay? And if you wrote out an answer just like this, obviously that's simpler to think about, all right? So how do people do on that? All right. Okay, so but that's the basic idea of the simple sort of process. So now we'll give you one that will get you to answer on your iClicker, okay? Okay. So now we have this cross. Okay, these are two separate questions. These really aren't related to one another, right? One doesn't follow from the other. They're two separate questions. So one is a genotype question, one is a phenotype question. So what fraction have this genotype, and what fraction have this phenotype? Okay, and I'll give you plenty of time. I'll go ahead and give you like 4 minutes. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna give you your choices. Okay, don't vote yet. I'll give you your choices. Wait off. I don't have the iClicker on yet. Okay, so these will be your choices. So you can think about it for another few seconds as to which of these you want to vote for. Okay, you have to give me a second to turn on the iClicker. Okay, so you can decide which one you want to vote for. Okay, and then I'm gonna have to cover it up. Okay. All right. Go ahead and give you till 30 seconds. Okay, everyone get their vote in. Okay. All right, let's see if we figure out what you all decided. All right, pretty good. All right, hey, all right, so that, great, all right, that's the right answer. And now, all right, now the annoying problem of pulling all this back over on my screen, all right. Okay, so that's great. So that's pretty straightforward, right? It's just keeping the crosses straight as you go. I'll get this back on the screen here in a second. Okay, so it's a matter of keeping those crosses straight as you go, all right. And so this would be the numbers that you'd actually use, hopefully, okay, in order to get that answer. All right, did anyone have, is there any particular issue that anyone had with this, or was it straightforward? Okay, it's just a matter of thinking clearly and writing it down as you go, all right. I'm sorry, I'm going to end this again, get that iClicker off of there. Okay. Okay, so now we'll go on then. So, but in the reality is that the inheritance patterns will often be more complicated than this. And so what we'll do is we'll go through now a number of examples where the numbers will be a little bit different than what you might expect, okay, in terms of, especially in terms of phenotype, all right, and go through a couple ways that happens. So, and that's often because many heritable characters are not determined by only one gene with two alleles. So there can be multiple genes that affect some phenotype, and that even for a single gene, there can be multiple alleles that act, okay? But the basic pattern still of segregation and inheritance is actually still holds true, okay? You just have to think it through a little bit, okay? And again, we'll give you some examples, okay? And so here's some things that happen. So for example, inheritance of characters by a single gene may deviate from the simple Mendelian patterns when the alleles are not completely dominant or recessive. Okay, so we've given you again right now simple examples of where something is strictly dominant, strictly recessive. Okay, or when a gene has more than two alleles, or when a gene produces multiple phenotypes. And we'll give you examples of these. Okay, so one is the degrees of dominance and the difference between complete dominance, incomplete dominance, and co-dominance. So complete dominance is what we've given you examples of right now. So pretty black and white examples, right? The incomplete dominance is when the phenotype of the F1 hybrids is somewhere between the phenotypes of the two parental varieties. Okay, and then co-dominance is when there are two alleles, but they're both dominant. They both affect the phenotype in separate and distinguishable ways. Okay, so now I'll show you examples. So first, an example of incomplete dominance. All right. So here we have snapdragons, and snapdragon flowers. We have a true breeding red and a true breeding white, and we've changed the way that we've written the genes a little bit in order to deal with this. So now we have a locus that we call C for color. Okay, and there are two alleles R, and so if you're homozygous R, you're red, and the allele white W, and so if you're homozygous for that, the flower is white. All right. So if I cross these two, okay, so what's the genotype of all the F1s? Okay, it's the heterozygous, right? It'd be CRCW. Okay, and so that's what I get, but all those flowers are pink. Okay, so this is the example of incomplete dominance, and so you get pink flowers.